it's due to the events that unfolded in Kenya. We're all aware of the events that unfolded. In one aspect of it, it's very unfortunate that will take lives of young people. Over 13, I mean, some people quoting different numbers, but at least it's more than 13 people had to lose their life for a government to listen and to reverse a decision or a policy that was going to be adversely going to harm the rest of the population, people that doesn't have the means, I mean, to cushion up or to survive, I mean, with dignity. And that being the case, the other aspect of what people look at is the achievement that they have achieved to push the government to reverse this decision. But just imagine that it takes more than 13 lives for this decision to be, I mean, reversed. But again, in the course of fighting for social justice, these things are inevitable. I mean, but to be candid, it should not be. I mean, we should live in a time that we can resolve these things. But it's unfortunate that the only time our government, a government that is elected and put in place to represent the interests of the majority or the people of Kenya or other governments will end up representing a minority and using those powers vested on them against their own people. And this was not only a decision that the president took, and yes, the president was likely to sign on to this law, but this is a decision that even the opposition in parliament took, supported. Just as when we see in our Gambia, we see the opposition, we see the parliamentary politicians from the opposition and from government come on to pass laws, I mean, that are harmful, that are not to our interests. Then we tend to sit down and think about where is this coming from? Who are these people representing? This is why it's important to do a reading, to try to have a program on this and have this, to have this very clear up. As we said about the unfortunate situation in Kenya, but it's not a new, it's kind of there's a kind of a new dimension to this, sort of social justice thing, but it's not new at all. It's within our history, but something have changed, and that change is that Generation Z. The Gen Z generation Z have actually come out in a different, and we are going to cover that. It's very important to note this difference here of demography. There have always been demographical differences, but in fact, recent studies, research, and journalists and social studies have really emphasized on this to try to differentiate the millennium and this Gen Z, and there's a reason for that. We're going to point onto this. But we are going to look at it citing Kenya, but we are going to look at it obviously to what specifically affect us. That's been the Gambia and our surrounding for that matter. This is what we're going to do in discussing this. We have seen globally this Gen Z generation. What's this Gen Z generation anyway? The Gen Z generation is, people born, children born in from 1996 onwards. From 1996 onwards to 2010. They decided this generation have something unique about them. Why do they have something unique about them? Because there are influences that made them to be unique. And these influences is the availability of social media. The social media, influence on this generation is a phenomenon. It's something that have never been seen. And I think the next generation would be even more progressive in this manner, or would be more how to call it? They'd be more effective in whatever they choose to do. because of the advance of technology. We have seen what AI can do and others. They are very informed and well informed at a very early age, which is very important. Which is very important. You see, there's always a debate. People tell me, oh, you should do your program in local languages. There are two things here. And I'll explain. The reason I don't do my programs like this program here, I host here on local languages. One, I try to capture a demography that is wider than, based on a language, this thing. Or if I speak Wolof here, I will alienate, I can tell you, so many viewers that would not understand Wolof. I do speak Wolof in other platform where that's what they operate on. If I speak Mandinka here, I might not be able to express myself well. To get the information out as I wish. If I have speak Fula here, I would alienate a lot of other people. But people say no, because of the people on the ground or most of the people that didn't go to school. That's where the difference comes. What I try to target here will be bigger than that. The social revolution is normally carried by younger people. My program is to get to those young people, for their consciousness to able to organize themselves. And the word organize I will emphasize because it's going to be crucial in what we are going to diagnose here. Organize themselves and to be to take part in the fight for social justice. Because for many reasons, they are crucial and they always have been crucial in social change. And knowing too that it's their future at risk, it's important to make sure they are conscious enough, able to organize themselves, to participate in the political discourse, and to bring about that social change. And the interesting thing is, between these two generations, the millennium and the Gen Z, is kind of it's just recently, it's been looked at very closely to try to decide a cutoff point where it is necessary to turn this. And for obvious reasons, many things have been looked at to decide that the millennium will start from 1981 and to 1996. Then 1997 to 2010 will be the Gen Z generation. And if you look at the millennium, 1981, interesting enough is, I remember something. You see how informed people might be, and you don't realize it. My parents, my mother and my parents' generation, they used to call children born after 1981 as the Kukoi generation. They call them the Kukoi generation. You see, the people we think they are not informed, the people we think they are not educated, you'll be surprised enough they are far more aware or more conscious than we know. They might have different temperaments, how they express themselves, but doesn't mean that they are not aware of this. They, in fact, had a demographic they define and they call them Kukoi generation. And that is, in a Gambian context, that means a lot. Then if you look at this Gen Z generation, in the Gambian context will be termed as the Gemme generation. Because they start from 1997 onwards to 2010. You can call them as the Gemme generation. And to be quite honest, that's a difference from the millennia and the Gen Zs. If you look very closely, and the difference is not anything else but the influences, the environment they were born, the environment they grow up with. As I said, the Gen Z, social media, technology have done a lot, to make them to be far more aware than the generations before them, have when they were at that stage in their life. The millennia came, and due to certain influences, global, the sub-regional, and the change of directions or government from a multi-party democracy going into dictatorship, that have actually informed them and made their mentality or thinking or their behavior and all the things they learned, to make them who they are. Now, if you look at this these generations in different countries, you will see very much of similarity, because people get influenced by things that are global factors. I mean, some are sub-regional, some are national. I mean, domestic factors. These two things influence. But with this generation now, because of the exposure to social media, I mean, they have an advantage to be far more exposed. Let me emphasize this word exposed, because they are exposed to many other things. But again, in this case, some of always a movement will come out of it, which of certain ways they'll be effective, because of they have seen things, they have learned things. They want to, you know, in those days they tell you, oh, the entire globe is just a difficult things. No, they will not accept it now, because they can see it televised. They can, they are in contact with people in different places to understand the dynamics and everything else. Then that do help them in their awareness. Now, notably, these differences will make them act in a different way or tackle things in a different manner. When we look at the global aspect of things, we have seen in America, in the United Kingdom, the Gen Z generation, the way they tackle the issue about Gaza. If you look at what is happening in the universities today, it's not new. It has happened during the Vietnam War. It has happened during the Iraq War. It has happened during many other stuff. But for this generation, their demands were kind of very specific. We want our investments in the universities that are going towards the Zionist movement or anything withdrawn. We want these positions being taken by our universities. We want this from our universities. Just as it happened during the apartheid fight for liberate South Africa from the apartheid regime and stuff like that. But we have seen the energy and everything else that this generation have led. And again, this is what we have seen in Kenya, unfolding in Kenya. Now, the interesting thing about Kenya, not only that it's in Africa, but you'll understand to further cement this argument, that the exposure of Kenyan to technology, exposure of Kenyans to information and social media is bigger than many African countries. It's only countries like Rwanda, but we know because of the dictatorship in Rwanda, people were not able to express themselves well. But if it comes to Africa, Kenya is one of the most advanced when it comes to internet and exposure to these things. And it's not surprising. We have seen it start from Kenya. But again, if we take a time and go into Senegal, when we look at Senegal, we will see this impact again. And again, if you visit Senegal, you'll see the difference of exposure of technology, social media and everything else. But you don't even have to visit it. You go online, TikTok or wherever it is, you see how dominant the Gen Zs are on these platforms. And to the extent of they have surpassed the influences that the mainstream media has. But coming back to Kenya and what is unfolding in Kenya, to understand the difference here, we have to look at what happened in Syria. Sri Lanka. What happened in Sri Lanka about 4 years ago, when a government in Sri Lanka fell. And the youths, we can categorize them as a Gen Z phenomenon, though at that time the Gen Z phenomenon was not recognized. But I can tell you the awareness and everything would have been of a factor here, that the Gen Z were at the forefront, and we saw them witness it. They went through the barriers with the police. They went through the barriers, the tanks with the army, and they managed to get to the palace and flush out their president, and which is very important. That's why I said organization. But after all, what happened? The mainstream politician might again They form another government, but at the impact, some of the policies they fought against, some of the conditions they fought against, and kind of these politicians now got fear in them to the extent of trying to bring stability, and since then we haven't had much. But why I'm emphasizing in organization is this might just be a reaction, but how organized would it be? It's not organized to the extent that they can, the government can form, but they cannot determine the next government coming. That's why when we discuss these things, we talk about how we make our youths to be more organized, so that they can, in fact, be not only a catalyst, but again, part of the process of bringing a new government that represents their interests. This is where Senegal comes in. PASTEF, this is where they come in. And PASTEF, they have a leadership that came from, the leadership came from the Generation X. The Generation X, which is from 1965 to 1980. If you look at PASTEF leadership, is a generation. It's very important when we do our politics or whatever we do, we try to measure these things. If we don't measure it, we will not understand or achieve what we need. Because these generational factors are very important to understand. The PASTEF, go and look at the PASTEF leadership, is Generation X, which is from 1965 to 1980. If you look at the entire leadership from Usman Sonko and whatever surrounds Usman, and even the people who might be even older than that came after. They joined PASTEF after, but the leadership, the background of the leadership are of the X. This is why at the latter part they even have to invent and classify other leadership of PASTEF, calling them Magi PASTEF, means the elders of PASTEF. Magi PASTEF, elders of PASTEF, to be seen for the things. And the other demography was Dara Magi or Dara PASTEF or something like that, because they were cultivating leverages from all the sectors and to identify. But the original leadership was the Generation X. But if you look at the main body or support of PASTEF, where the generation Millennium and the Z. If you take the Millennium and Z out, and remember too, they are voters. When you educate these people and look at the demography, go and look at the census of any country in Africa, you see that the bulk of the population is the youth. And if you talk about the youth, you talk about the millennia and to the Gen Z, because the Gen Z are now 22, 21. They are at university. In most cases in Africa, people vote at 18. You see, that's why in the United Kingdom here, there's a debate. The Labour or the Liberals want the voting age to be lower to 16, because that will give a bigger demography. That would be voting for social issues that are of liberal nature, because these Gen Zs are kind of inclined to the liberal ideology. You see, that's why they want the voting age to be lower. Generations are very important to define in development and social science. Now, the leadership of PASTEF came from the X. They organized themselves. They are not reactionaries. They came out to become a political party. That's where it matters to understand that. We don't expect the kids, the youth, just to get up and represent or bring about the change. Yes, they will be in the process of the change. I always hear Gambians say, yeah, Gambian youths. But the leadership are not representing them. Until we have a leadership that purely represents them, they will see themselves. This is the case that was in Senegal. In most cases, the youths would be following the mainstream political parties. And when change came into Senegal, Abdoulaye Wade, it was the youths. It was the youth. Macky Sall, it was the youth. From Yana Mark to others. The millennium and the Gen Zs. Not only that, going out in the streets, but even to vote. Not only going out in the streets, but to vote. That's why the liberals in America, the Democrats, are trying to appease. Even with they're trying to appease. Most of their policies or movement, these things, they are looking at this, millennia and the Gen Zs, that they are the one to make the difference for them. That's why we need to organize ourselves. We need to educate these generations, and engage them and let them be part of leadership. As I said, in Senegal, the difference was they determined the government they're going to have. The youth determined it because there were people from the X generation who came about to bring that organization. If not, it'll be futile. Now, just as what happened in Sri Lanka and Kenya. You see, Sri Lanka, what may happen in mainstream developing countries, even developed countries, tribe can be defined in many ways. In Africa, when we talk about tribe, it's about linguistic. But in America, in Europe, and so on, tribe can be an elitist, definition of elitist position. The conservative are of a tribe. The the liberals here are of a tribe. You see, and what you find in America, two-party dominates. They are mainstream. The Democrats and the conservative. What much of a difference? What people do is to settle for the lesser evil for them. But in most cases, not what they even want them to be represented. And these two mainstreams would not allow things to change. They will allow for system that will allow them to interchange governments. But the entirety for change would come from an anti-establishment background. But it's technically, for anti-establishment background, people think of it have to be a social revolution. This is why we see in South America, where we see the civil wars going through, ideology, the FARC, the other revolutionary, go to the Bolivians, revolutions, the kind of the revolutions and orders happens. But when it happens in Europe, what happens is the change now, it's the far right. The far right. The far right now is kind of the anti-establishment. Just as in America, in Europe now, we see far right parties become very popular. Because this is what happens when people, kind of are really frustrated with the mainstream, they will look for another home. And for many, the far right is prescribing a solution for them which attract them to change. And that's why in Germany, in England, and wherever else, we see the far right really being catalyst to change. In some cases, they are not being changed themselves, but they be catalyst to change. We have seen what is happening in France. They are forcing election in France. We have seen what's happened in England. They force a Euro exit. We have seen what is happening in America now. The conservative are controlled by the Trump fascist movements. These are the realities of governance. Now, when you come to Africa, what we'll end up having is tribal identities in our political these things because of the base of our leaders and base of political parties. In Kenya, and this becomes history. And the reason this will become history again in Kenya, just like in default in Gambia and other countries, it's the way and manner those countries were governed in the colonial. In the Gambia, we know what we have as the provinces called the protectorate. You see, and that became the PPP. We know what we call the colony. The colony became UP. But what we did not see it as a provincial party and an urban party. What we see the identity of the leaders, we see UP as Wolof and PPP as Mandinka, and this is where by default it continue, and now every party that is formed, what a Gambian look for, can I leader be? Ben Suwareh, one party puller that will come into it, or people start to ally because of this kind of family or kind of identify themselves with a party. Okay, if you look at Kenya, what happened during the colonial days? In fact, the worst of it was they brought a third party which was the Indians. They brought the Asians in order to help them to able to really divide, because it's about the land. The land, they help to divide. Now you have the Kukuyus, you have the other tribes. Becoming two-party state technically, and the Indians become the technocrats, become the business people, the money people, the landowners. But what else? Most of these families that have political parties have land. They negotiated with the British, they have land. But we know what the Mau Mau, the social revolution that was going on, the Mau Mau. The Mau Mau, in fact, these people, Kenyans, went with the British to kill and disseminate them in order to allow the system to stay. Now, you have the Kenyattas, you have the Odingas. And this is what we have in Kenya. Now, if you talk about, there'll be a change, what we are taking, there'll be interchange between the Dingas and the Kenyattas. But the last elections, Dinga Kenyattas, in fact, to the extent of Kenyatta going to support Dingas, and the Kenyattas drop. The present president, who was the vice president, because they wanted. You see, when they play the tribal card, they will divide the people, and among that they will try to get the other tribes to support them, and that's where the Kenyan president now, featured. He became a vice president because he was supporting the Kenyattas. Now, the Odingas, remain opposition. But to the second term, Kenyatta, to protect a dynasty, he would rather see the opposition take over than someone who is not from these two angles. He went and supported the opposition, but this president, won the elections. Now, for him, instead of bringing about change, because he was not there to represent change, he acted or sounded to be an anti-establishment. You see, that's where Pastef come in again. Pastef came as an anti-establishment, and they hold him up as an anti-establishment. He used the anti-establishment platform in order to win elections. Now he pushed the Kenyattas, he pushed the Odingas away, and took their support base in order to come in as an anti-establishment. These youths, the millennials, the Gen Zs, put him to government, and he disappointed them. Now with all the rhetorics, if you go online, you hear him, all the things he talk about, he doesn't represent any of that. He's just like a continuity. Just as what we have continuity in the Gambia is just continuity in Kenya. And what causes this continuity would be economic policy. But before going there, I can tell you it's the same system we have in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was the Tamil and the Singaling and others forming political party. We know they went to a civil war and everything else. And technically, families becoming the opposition. Families become the party. The only main opposition you have was coming from the Tamil Tamil people, and this actually went to the extent of now the people. When the government fell, it was not the opposition that took out to the streets. This is very important to note. Just as what happened in Kenya today is not the opposition that led it. What happened in Sri Lanka was not the opposition that led it. It was the people. And these people are the millennia and the Gen Zs. But what they demanded was because of the cost of living and so on and so forth. Kenya, this is what is happening now. It's not the opposition that took the lead. What happened in Kenya, it's not new in Kenya, but it's different. Because Kenya, every elections, there would be this sort of situation, but it's always the opposition going to claim that the elections are rigged. They will go to the courts and they will take to the streets. That's every year. And in fact, there was an election, 2 times ago, that even the ICC had to intervene, and both the opposition and the government leaders were taken to the ICC, but the prosecution failed because of the cases were undermined. Just tell you the tension. But what is different this time around? It's not the opposition. That's why it's effective as well. It's the people, and that people is the Gen Zs and the youths. The same thing happened in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, the Tamils would not have seen themselves with the Sinhalese and the other people that allied against them and fought them, civil war, massacred them, and everything else. But when it comes to that, the people, their concerns, cost of living and everything else, they came together and reacted against the policies, and when they went in. But the minute that was kind of halted, arranged, what happened? The governments continued again by taking out a brother and putting in a brother. Now, in Kenya and Sri Lanka and in Senegal and in the Gambia, I can tell you one thing, that is exactly the problem, is the politics. It's about economic management. And that's why if we talk about this, we'll see Gambia in it very, very clearly. And if you look at Senegal, we see the same thing. And when we see what was prescribed in Kenya by the present government, he went against, we are going to do this differently, we're going to do this differently, we're going to do this differently. When he came in, nothing was done differently. The system continued, and this new law was actually policies are actually even worse than what was going to happen, used to happen. Now, if you understand now what I say about economy, when Gambians or many Senegalese look at Senegal, they say, Senegal is developing. What is developing in Senegal? The infrastructure in Senegal. Have you seen their airport? Have you seen their basketball pitch? Have you seen their football pitch? Have you seen their roads? But they never think about how did Senegal achieve this? And what real impact these things have onto the life of the people, livelihood of people. Have you seen Dakar now? Have you seen the buildings being built in Dakar? Apart from the diaspora buying some of this property, most of the properties are bought by drug dealers, corrupt officers, and money launderers. You go to the slums of Dakar, and so many of it. Kermassar, that's why when there's a demonstration, go to Kermassar, go to Pekin, go to Charlie, go to all these places that you see the flash points of these things, because of people going to bed there, racing up there, going to the cities, trying to get work. They are not being paid sufficient to survive. If you look at the model of agriculture, what is designed for agriculture, Senegal cannot still feed themselves, cannot still do this, cannot still do that. And look at the model of agriculture. What happened is the young people, the Gen Zs, the millennials are leaving those rural areas. They are all congregating in Dakar. That's why you keep on building roads in Dakar, train, trams, and everything. Congestion still be there because of everybody is congregating to Dakar or major cities. And Dakar, for that matter, you go to Saint Louis, it's not that populated, or other things and so on. But again, because of this, they all come to Dakar to look for greener pastures, or you see them all taking the back way, for greener pastures. Then what is this development then in Senegal? No, because of the airport, in fact, it's not owned by Senegal. It's built and lease. The roads are not owned by Senegal, are built to lease. The football field, this is not owned by Senegal, it's built to lease. It's not a good practice. It's not a good strategic development. You end up paying so much. But why would they do it? Because it gives them money instant. Money will be available instantly. And that money available instantly, what happens is the politicians become rich instantly. And after they incur all this debt, the debt has to be paid. Now, those roads would not have enough traffic to pay for the overinflated invoices. If a road would be built at 10 million, it will cost at 100 million because of many people are going to take their cut. And the road is likely to be built by a foreign company from the country that give you the loan. The money is not coming to the Senegal. Most of the money is not coming to the Senegal, or it's not been paid to Senegalese, but it's paid to other experts. Now, the stadium, they hardly play enough matches for the stadium to pay for itself and bring profit for government. The airport is not having enough traffic to pay for itself and give profit to government. I mean, the basketball and every other thing is the same policy. Now, what problem you have? Now you have so much debt. That was the indebtedness is. Now you have to pay for this. You have to pay for this because your productive sector, because of, you see, when they sign these deals, when France comes in to say that this is their, they agree on this development, this thing, you have to allow them certain things in your country. And when you allow that, that's to your disadvantage. China will come and do the same thing. EU will come and do the same thing. IMF will come and do the same thing. World Bank will come and do the same thing. And others will. Now you don't have an sovereign economy. You see, that's why Pasteur keep on emphasizing on this sovereign economy. Until Africa have a sovereign economy, we will never be developed. We might have these skyscrapers, we might have this, but development, what it meant would be the life of the average African, life of the average Gambian, life of the average Senegalese would not be better off because of the model is wrong. The model is wrong. We might be happy to see a country be like this thing, but the model is wrong. Now, because of, for instance, the license the EU have for fisheries, it's because of EU making Senegalese politicians who are corrupt believe, oh, in order for us to have something from the EU, we have to give them license. Rather than, no, let's trade with the EU. If they want, we are not poor. If they want something from us, let's trade fairly. But let's move away from this mindset that the EU is richer than us, they are coming to help us. Coming to help us, now we have to give them our fish, and so that annually they will support our budget. But if you have got a better business deal in these fisheries, you will need their support. And you hold on to your sovereignty, you hold on to your leverage. That's been the Chinese, been everybody else. The IMF and World Bank have an agenda, and they have people they represent. The African Development Bank is not even owned by Africans. The largest shareholder in African Development Bank is France. France. Why can't we have a sovereign bank? Continental bank that no other foreign interest would own an interest. The wealth we have in Africa is the wealthiest continent. Why are we the poorest living people? Because of the leadership and the economic policy and the global this thing they support them. This is what is. But that's why they don't like anti-establishment government. Now this is the prescription that Pasteur said. This is what our solution is, and the Gen Zs, the millennials, supported it, and the rest of Senegal did, in order for them to win an overwhelming majority without stealing of elections. Whenever that happened, it's a government in place that will win overwhelming majority, and in most cases they will still rig the elections in order to have an overwhelming. For an opposition to have an overwhelming majority in I mean, especially new opposition tells you that they sold them policies. They didn't sell them tribe, they didn't sell them any other identity, but a pure Senegalese identity that we are all in this together, and in order to salvage ourselves, we have to come out to the forefront. That's why they were determined, they have the consciousness, I mean, and to fight and to achieve this. In Kenya, the Kenyans, the Odingas, any government that came is the same framework. What the British did before, the Indians have their petitions. They got certain land. The Kenyans have certain, if I'm talking about land, it's not about 50 by 50, 50 by here. Technically, miles and miles of areas owned by families. The English families, the colonials own hectares and hectares and hectares and hectares, regions of land. No established political party have ever attempted to rewrite the wrong. And this land are not only land, they are the most fertile. And this land would have not only the most fertile, it have the source of water, streams, rivers, some, and they own them. It's not owned by the state. You wonder why the people die for their country, just for the British to still hold on. Go and look at British families owning, Google it. Google British family owning land in Kenya. Go and Google the Indian families owning land in Kenya. Go and Google how much the Kenyans, the Odingas have land in Kenya. And you go and see what the state owns. The biggest slum in Africa is in Kenya. But the biggest skyscrapers in Africa is in Kenya. But the bridges, the trains, and everything else. But go and find out how they build those roads, how they build those skyscrapers. Go and see the policies why the tech companies are favoring Kenya. When the indigenous Kenyans are even producing far more advanced softwares, but they cannot go to market because there's no policy, there's no initiative, there's no strategy that the government put in place for the Kenyans. But what now they become an incubator for the big tech companies. That's why you can see the wealth on Kenyans, because there's no sovereign policy to protect those Kenyans. Now, all these roads, everything they build it on borrowing money from China, from EU, from World Bank, from all that, with all the wealth in Kenya. Even animals are not owned by the people. They are owned by families, white families, Indian families, and the elite families. But the indigenous people, villages are owned technically by people. Because you go to a land, the Masai Maras, and other places, you'll be surprised that the Masai living there, they don't own that land. And that's their ancestral land. They are restricted because there's a corporation that owns this and doing it for hospitality. How did that corporation own that land for hospitality, and the people of Kenya did not have right to that land? Go and look at the biggest companies in Kenya. How many of them are owned by indigenous Kenyans? Go and look at it. Because that's the model. All the presidents of Kenya, the leader of opposition in Kenya, are filthy rich from Kenyans. The Jumbo Kenyans. The Kenya, go and check the background of the Kenyans. Go and look at the Odingas. Because of the deal they did with the colonials. Now they continue that economic model. These big businesses are not paying the fair share of tax because of the policy implemented in these countries. Big business don't pay fair share of tax. They structured and have ways to legally avoid paying tax because of they dictate the government in place. That government will allow policies that will allow them to keep their districts. Go and find out how much, where that money goes to. It comes to these countries. That's how these countries are built. The France, Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, everything is built on the sweat of our people. We are not poor. We are a rich nation with poor people in it because of the leadership we have. And this is what the Gen Zs have understand now. It's easier. If people used to go to university and everything, they will never understand this because of what they taught in university is drawn, the curriculum and everything is from the imperial leaders. Now, the Gen Zs would be interacting on social media and learn a lot from radical ideas and other things that they would never do things, and they can easily organize because if they have the instruments to organize themselves, social media would help them. Now, imagine with all this disparity, the ownership of land, opportunities and everything is just taken away from the people. Now the people are struggling. You have very intelligent, smart, tech Kenyans. They cannot develop their tech because of the policies government have allowed all these big tech companies come in to say that it's a foreign direct investment. But to what cost? Your strategic development. Now you anchor your strategic development on these people. You want to piggyback on these people. They will never let you be independent, sovereign economy. You never. That's why Pastor said we're going to do these things differently. We are going to empower national tech companies. We are going to do things, many things nationally. And if you say that, they say, oh, you are socialist. You are anti-imperialist. You are this. Let it be anti that. But what it should be is you are not anti your people. Just what they say that if the imperialists, clap for you, then means that you are harming your people. When they go against you, means that you are supporting your people. I know that that thing have been abused and continue to be abused by dictators. From Suwareh and the present dictators we have in Africa will tell you that because they're allowing themselves to be abused by Russians, who are another form of their imperialists as well. But I can say pure, that's why again I'll go to passive. That's why they don't ally themselves with any, not France, not any other country, not Russia. Because they believe you have to believe in yourself in order to liberate. The tiger economists, go and look at the tiger economy. Go and look at the dragon economy. Go and look at the Japanese economy. Why did they advance? Because they took ownership of their economy. If you don't have ownership of your economy, you don't have ownership of your land, your water, your natural resources, you don't own anything. And you expect your people to live a dignified life, you are, really. And your education and everything is drawn by those people. You expect, no. Now, to bring it down again, the debt. The Kenyan government went into this much debt because of this borrowing from different. They will blame China. The West will tell you, oh, China believes. At least with China, when they go into it, they'll build it. In many loans, grants, and whatever you call them, that the EU gave, or this thing were not even implemented. And the EU did not censor them. Because of they are allowing the EU to do what they want to do. Now, and it become attractive now. The EU and World Bank and IMF are starting to compete with China, India, Turkey in investments. What happened now? They even loosen their accountability measures. The EU now don't implement that much accountability measure because they don't want to push the countries to the hands of China and others to lend. That's why recently, since they used that strategy, you don't hear China lending that much to African countries. But they are lending more to African countries, the World Bank, IMF, EU, and other institutions from their end. And they are encouraging indebtedness. Every year they will give you glowing. Go and look at EU, IMF records. They will tell you, oh, economy is growing this far, this, that. It's all lies. Depend what the indicators they want to use. But the life of the people are not getting better. When you have 6%, 10% growth, but where? Direct foreign investment. Anything they measure, it's a distortion. It's a destruction. Let's measure the life of our people. With all this, corruption and everything else, the time now to pay for this debt. They say, let the poor people pay. You know, when you draw tax very, in a non-progressive way, to increase VAT, value-added tax. It means that you're taxing everybody, but you are mainly taxing the poor person. Mainly taxing the poor person, because it's across the board. And do you know some of the items they added value, added tax? Sanitary towels for the dignity of our women, for the hygiene and dignity of our women. We all know what happens when people are so poor they cannot buy disposable sanitary towels, or more advanced reusable sanitary towels. They will use any cloth to keep themselves sanitized, and those cloths or reusable cloths or whatever it is expose them to infections. And the men, they don't do the work properly, probably, and they feel indignified when they go to public. They avoid public places. They avoid many other things. But these people went to increase that. It doesn't affect them. The rich, the wealthy, the elites doesn't affect them. And others. In fact, the usage of technology, they increase it. And all these people, I can tell you, their companies, their government is paying for their technology, government is paying for everything else. But again, this corn, they started this, they said that they want to protect the local manufacturers. I forget the statistic, I read about it. The statistic of how much is produced in Kenya and how much is imported from India and other places. Sanitary towels and stuff like that. This disparity. Oh, we want to empower. How do you empower? To tax what is coming in. Just as Gambia said, we want to empower local producers. We don't produce cement. But they would use that for nationalistic instinct. They say no. The young people said no. It's not going to affect you guys. It's going to affect us. It's a scam. They want to increase all this. For what? To pay something they borrowed. They borrowed it, they didn't manage it well. They went to borrow in terms and conditions that are bad. Not only that, because of the inflated projects and everything else for their kickbacks, their corruption. They get better off people this thing. They went and built things that are of most political things, but they did not even borrow to put it in productive sectors. That's where they would make profit in order to build their own. But no, they went and borrowed something that would not yield profit. The impact would not give profit to the nation, for the nation to be able to pay for it to pay itself and even give profit to government. When you do investments, you look at, if I put in, what comes out. No, let it a big part. Oh, my government will say that we build this road, we build this railway, we build this bridge, we build this thing. But it's not to impact, rather than empowering Kenyans. You hear that Kenya produce tea, export tea, Kenya export flour, Kenya do this, Kenya do this. No, there are families doing them. Rich Indian families, rich British families, rich Kenyan families. They are not the people. The people are the labor force, and they will die as labor force. That's why Senegal said, no, we are going to build a cooperative system where villages will come together, we'll empower them to produce. We are not going to import, and we are not only going to allow to take the most fertile part of our land. We take our water, and we give you tax incentive for you to come and build an agro business, and our people to become your laborers. Just think about it. This is what we need to tell our people. That's what they do. And the EU said, oh, because of direct foreign direct investment. For what? Bring an agro business, and government can put in place for you, an individual or a company to come from Europe or anywhere else to come and bring an agro business in the Foni and use all the Foninkas to be laborers. When the government can bring all the Foninkas, use the Ministry of Agriculture, all the experts, the thousands of Gambians we have trained in Reading, in Cornell University, in many universities, in China, in Taiwan, in all these places for agronomy and any form of this thing. In Oxford for agricultural, every form of knowledge you think of, we have sent our people there. Why can't we bring them in and let them run that company and make sure the phony will be transformed for whatever we choose to, or what is suitable for phony to be transformed to. But an Indian family go to Ahmadabad, become a friend of Ahmadabad, give kickbacks to Barbaro and others, and they give them miles and miles. They say, now we are producing onions. And what are the government doing producing onions? They are the farm hands. They are the farm hands. You give them your land, because they say sell what land. You give them your land, you give them your water, you give them, they plant bananas. The bananas, how many bananas Gambians are going to eat for them to export to lucrative markets? Why would we give you our land, our water and everything, when even if Gambians one day can sustainably produce bananas for themselves? It's not a hard thing to do. Every Gambian can have a banana plant in their backyards. Why do we have plantations of banana? Go and look at what that did to South America, the Caribbean and others. You become dependent. This is the kind of measures they have in Kenya. Now it's time to pay for this robbery. Now the people have to pay and suffer. And this is why the Gen Z said no. Just as the Gen Z in England stood up to say no to what happened in Gaza. In America, no to what happened in these things. And with what we complain here as police brutality, which is true, it's a police brutality, but tells you the measure of the civil, nature of our people. Even with what the police do to drag the young youths and do whatever it is, it's protested here. But for that government to turn around, to call the army, because of if there was any other way, the youths would not have been out there. They're outraged. That's what happens when you are outraged, when you are conscious and outraged. You come out. But you don't expect your army that should be protecting you, that should be protecting your territorial integrity. In fact, you are fighting for that territorial integrity. They should be with you to come and kill you. And that president to come out to say, oh, this thing hijacked. They always give you that statement. Some people hijacked. Every day, every weekend, there are demonstrations of thousands in London. They are point pin or doing certain things. The police have to arrest them. They have to do this. They have to take them to court away. But you don't even to brutalize anybody. The rest of the population will stand and attack the police for that. They say, no, you don't do that. We live in a democracy. The conservatives want to stop demonstration. No. People said no. Even within the conservatives, they said no, we are not going to. As I said, if the government was doing things right, that policy would not have been in place. It doesn't take the people, and if the people did not have come out, the policy would have continued and the people would stay in dignity. And you see, if you don't demonstrate, you come to a time. You see the Arab Spring, it did not just happen. Many things happened and they never came out. And that's what ended up the Arab Spring. In Kenya, they used to come out only for elections, dispute. But now they came out for policies affecting them. There were skirmishes in the streets there with Chinese. They go and attack Chinese because of their taking of their markets and everything. But it's the policy that their government signed. Where you have all the natural resources, you went and signed that order of taxation law. Agreement with China. Obviously, it's China's interest. Now, China would have your raw materials without heavy tax, and they bring the finished material without heavy tax, and you think it's cheaper for your people. You are a consumer. Now they're taking your resources to make you a consumer and keep you a consumer, and China will be transforming. Every year, millions of Chinese are coming out of poverty because of the back on Africans. This is the same policy. China would say that I give you 50 million to build roads in URR, but you have to give me your mineral, your marine resources. That's what happened in the Gambia. And we have to have this policy of double tax or whatever nonsense. India will come and say to you, oh, I will build you a national parliament. It has to cost you 35 million to build this. But later on, they went out, oh, it's 55 million. Oversight. Then you have to agree to the fee, because when you are signing that contract of 35 million, there's a clause in that contract to tell you that if costs go up, I have to incur that cost. Why did you sign that? Why can't you build your own national parliament that you can afford? 35 million, and now it's 55 million. Now you're going to pay, because they said to you that, oh, we're going to give you a grace period of 4 years. Then you're going to pay 4% of that. Remember that, though, that 4% you're paying is not in rupees. It's not in dollars. And even if it's in rupees, you are going to exchange that. And we wonder, why do we have deficits? Balance of trade. But it's not only, India did not only have that in this. They come and build it. An Indian company will come and build that. And rest of the money is staying in India as well, because of, if some of even the senior laborers will be Indians. They create jobs for themselves and everything. In the course of building that place for 3 years, they created jobs, they repatriated profits, and they have started to introduce a market. And because of part of what you signed to get that loan, you have signed to open your markets for them. That's why, since they opened that parliament, go and look how many Indians now dominate our markets. Go and look at other agreements we signed, because we never read the fine prints. Go and read the agreement we signed with India. When we could have, just I keep on saying, if the Jawara government did not allow corruption to take them over, they had the good ideas. They had the Agriculture Development Bank in order to make sure Gambians have access to loans and finances to develop agriculture. They had the Gambia Commercial and Development Bank for trade and commerce for Gambians, to go into trade and commerce. And that could have transformed, but corruption, they allow corruption, families to take it over. They had the IBAS for Indigenous Business Advisory Bill to educate, to advise indigenous Gambians to get into trade and this. We used to have our badibunkas, we used to have our fanas, we used to have our futankas, used to have all these people. Starting from small business to medium business, and if we supported those people, they would have been the big businesses today. But what we allow policies, lazy policies, the Indians will just come and transplant their people. I can tell those Indians are coming here because their government are empowering them in the Gambia to open those businesses in order to import finished goods from India to the Gambia and collect our raw cashew nuts and whatever they can get from timber and anything, take it to India, finished product, bring it back to Gambia. It's a policy. Let's come back to it. Now, in a nutshell, this is what creating our problems, and the Genesis came out to show themselves. Now, just imagine if you come to Gambian context. As I said, if you look at the Genesis generation, that would be called the Jammeh generation. To be quite honest, I am not being negative on that generation. But we should think about it and think about it clearly. When you look at that generation, what do you think affects them? Or let me put it, what impact does the dictatorship have with these young people? Because we keep on blaming them, we don't tend to think of why they are so. Oh, your youths now are ruthless. Where do they learn the ruthlessness from? Where they have a president or a head of state who did not respect rule of law, who have no respect and regard for society, norms and anything, who would sit down on tele to insult and doing it strategically to disorient society in order to have an orientation that he will control. When that person will come, the dictator will sit down and say, oh, let the hypocrisy of about talking about wealthy Gambians and poor Gambians, knowing that he's lying in most of the time, because he will say Fajara, all the people in Fajara. Go and look at the demography of Fajara. Fajara he's talking about. Go and look at the demography. One demography, most of the people in Fajara come from rural communities. And they live in Fajara because of, go and look at their educational background. They are doctors. Let me just give you some, just go and look at how many people in Kudang live in Fajara. But if you look at those people in Kudang, politics does not give them their position. They earn it. They earn it. Sise, Marina, Kurang. Give me the other ones. Sise, Marina, Kurang. Just go and see these families because of the education. Doctor. Economics, this. Go and look at the orders from other areas. Other areas. It's not the politics. Yes, there are few that got their properties, whatever it is, through corruption. There are. Just as when you come to the UK or others, it's no excuse, but there will always be corrupt people among us. But overwhelming people living in Fajara, go and look at their backgrounds. These were the first administrators, the Aku. The first administrators where that land where it was demarcated for them. Some of them, in fact, not the state, the Alcalos, before the state started to demarcate. That's why if you understand Fajara, different areas of Fajara, different demarcations in Fajara, you can see the size of the properties. Certain size of the properties tells you that it was demarcated by Alcalos, and when the land office came in and orders demarcated. These people are civil servants, the Akus, and some of these people, in fact, it's the land they're given to, and what they have built was not mansions, they are bungalows. And the others, other educated elites from different tribes, like I said, Mandinkas, Wolof, and others who were in government. Some of them became permanent secretary, deputy permanent secretary, where they have access loans, they have do this and did that, and what they had was one property or two properties at most. Even two properties was unheard of. And if you know, I witnessed it, nobody telling me this. Those properties, they will start to build it, and they will build it, some of them with 10 years. Some would be still incomplete because they probably started when they were directors or assistant, whatever it is, assistant permanent secretary, or before they become something else. There were fewer ministers. I can tell you, there are fewer ministers. If you look at almost the same people will be ministers every time of the government. Go and put together all the Gambian, count how many ministers served in 30 years of Jawara, and see which one of them ever had anything that you said was wealthy. A handful. A handful can become wealthy. A handful will become wealthy. But that Fajara became, Fajara. Yeah, the same person telling you this come from nothing, and within 2-3 years he's owning properties abroad, owning properties everywhere, just as Barrow did. Barrow is doing worse than him anyway. This guy passing now, he's having a wife that is using private jet to do shopping, and he was telling you that Jawara is going to London to play golf. He is not own. He's owning private jets. 2 private jets. I think one of it was a Falcon or whatever it is. 2 private jets. Maintained by government. Social Security and others maintaining those private jets. And this person was telling you all this. Putting hate in us. And again, the default of tribal politics, as I said, from the colonial, just as default in Kenya and others, he makes that entrenched, where a leader would sit down in public, even in private, but in public, to call out tribes and insult them. Now you think those young people listening to this, what do you think it does to them? What do you think it does to those young people? Where this guy has subdued every oversight institution that should all be accountable. But this most important thing of those oversight institutions are our religious elders. And when we talk about religious elders, we know we have Christianity and Muslim, but mainly our imams. He had subdued our imams because what he did to the Karamo tourists of Birkamas and others. Just as the insult, the way they insulted the Imam Ratif of Banjul, Ablajo. I know it's not a direct insult, but the disrespect, because of that's what we hold. We never thought that the Imam Ratif would go and sit down and someone like a young soldier would stand and start talking back or saying certain things. This is what they allow, and gradually everything else. They see the mother, they see torture. This is what they witness. And you think that's not going to impact our Gen Z generation? We see the ruthlessness, the way our society became socially engineered. That he will sack you today and appoint your cousin tomorrow. And you have to come out to show loyalty and in fact split the family. You know how many families are now just compromising because of the way he split? He will take your direct cousin or even sack you today and appoint your wife. You think these things don't have effect in society? All these things, many things. But we were bound to blame the Gen Z generation, bound to blame the millennials, bound to blame everything else, but we don't see of what. Just as if we look at the millennials, some of the effect that the Jawara regime have on them. Opportunism. And yeah, this notion of politics of tribe. It did not start with Yaya. Yaya entrenched it. The politics I'm talking about. The emphasis on politics, I'm not saying that Gambian people are tribalists. I'm saying there's a politic of tribalism. And it's not because of hate of one tribe, it's because of opportunism, resources. You see, this affected our youth. Look at it this way. Even in our music, if there's a debate here, simple experiment. Go and look at when something happened to a certain musician. If that musician is a Mandinka, go and look at the comment box. You see a divide. You see a divide. It's not about the person's music, it's not about the person's talent or anything, but it's the person's identity. If the person is a Wolof, you will see that. When you have if you pitch a Wolof musician and a Mandinka musician, what you see the divide is not the choice of love of music, it's the identity of the musicians. I can give an example. My growing up, I have a different choice of music. I love Ifambodi. My brother loves Gelawar. Our choice, why do we have the competitive or supporting edge is because of I am more in tune with what Fambondi was. Because probably I like Senemi. How skillful Senemi was with the keyboard. But or like somebody else. I like Panjai bass. People who know Panjai bass will tell you who Panjai bass is. You see? I grow up looking up to these people. It implies, but latter part, it started to change. And some of these people are, most of them, in fact, not some, are subconsciously not even aware that the biases they're expressing are not healthy. They are biases of identity, not biases of love. For some, we all have our biases, but when it's certain biases, we have to note it and know, oh, this is unhealthy. These are all Gambian talented youths, and because of the politics of tribe, it should not make me, way in here or there. I should love this music because of whatever reason. I should love this artist because whatever it is. I mean, they did this, but not because of their identity. Not because of their identity. You see what informs us. And when we look at why our challenges are, and this is part of our challenges. Some of these things is by default, some of these are by design. And as I said, that's how bad it is and it affects us. But again, let's look at this. To show the evidence in politics. We showed talented youths. I think, let me just see for people to understand what I'm talking about. We saw some talented kids who are not even, I don't think some of them even made the cut for to be called the millennial generation. Let me see if I have shared it with. Okay, let me play this. I just play this video for people to understand. I mean, because the reason I'm doing this, most of you will know what I'm talking about. But there might be a generation that will come in and listen to this and they will not know what I'm talking about. I just play this for you to understand. These are young, probably the eldest would be 19-year-old. We saw them using comedy, satire for that matter, political satire, satiric and other things. And they did their performance. They did several videos. But guess what? The Minister of Basic Education had to get involved. Why? It's not because of what she thinks, no, because of what is dictated to her. Because of the NIA. I don't bother even calling them SIS. Thought that, oh, this is kind of a destabilizing. That's why I said, let us be very careful. Let us not allow these laws to go in. These laws are designed. What informed these laws, the anti-repressive laws that the government want to bring in to regulate the media and everything, is because of their fear, because they have failed, because they want to silence us, knowing that if we keep on talking, this is what brings off the consciousness and we will witness Gambians coming up. Because the opposition are not going to do it for us. Because if opposition would be apprehensive, saying that UDP will say, oh, if we go out with, they will say UDP are violent or UDP are this. Because of that's what the state have designed. Just as when the Democrats want to do certain things, they see, or how it will be seen somewhere else. They don't do it by conviction. This is our conviction, we are going to do it. It's about strategy, it's about politics. But you know, when conscious people come up, it's their conviction. That's why I've been having the discussion today, someone talking about, oh, this. I said, look, you have to understand politicians. Majority of politicians don't go into politics because of they believe in the politics they're going for. It's not a conviction. It's not that. It's part of who they want to become, what they want to become. It's not what they can impact. That's why they are inconsistent. That's why they calculate things what they do. Now, these youths, let me just play it, and we'll come back to it. This is, okay, let me try and get the other one. This is the dub. Okay. Yeah, it's just so I'm looking for the. God, I don't know who I share it with. Okay, it's here.
Hunger makes me to steal and you big me like a doing. Gambia la for Jahalu. The government are stealing our money and some of us are backing them. Mansakunda, Falman Balafamal Bamali, Nadia Bondila Water Dulata Vitala Muntu. Hey, Anga Yone, bringing Gambia la Kula Semba was a Mary Musolabal. Hey, listen, all of Jainena, Kula Yek Yuko, why Kula Talit Talco. So, brothers and sisters, let's rise up and fix our broken nation, the Gambia.
Yeah, these are some of the let me see if I have another one. These are some of stuff they have done. There are some of the stuff they've done, and yeah, I mean, these are some of the things these young people. Why involve the NIA? We live in a democracy. Who shall say that children should not be in politics? Who said that? These are selection of children. They are passionate. They are very intelligent. Not every child can do this. Not every child have the confidence to do this. But this is how we nurture them. But the same government would get this youngest of children and put T-shirts on them with Barra on it, take them out to political campaign. They don't have a problem with that. You see, that's why I said this media bill is against the opposition, is against us who speak against the opposition, against the government. This government would put uniforms, T-shirts with Barra and everything else, put these children at the back of trucks. Then their license, everything, transfer them around. We've seen them. And talented children coming out, voicing out, we have a problem with that. To the extent of arresting them, to the extent of pulling on bail for what? Bail for what? What crime have they committed? What have they said? Bail for what? Why would the Minister of Basic Education allow the police to intervene in school administration? Why can't it be dealt, if anything should be dealt with in the school administration? Bail for what? That bail is intimidation. It's sad. I hope, I know someone like Lamin S. Dabo, is it Lamin S. Dabo, the lawyer? The one taking the case pro bono for the Chabde accused of shooting the police. I know his hands are full, but I just wish other lawyers would come up, stand up, and all the organizations, in fact, the civil society will come out, but they are silent. The bar association will come out, they are silent. The female lawyer, these things come out, they were silent. And this is what is actually dangerous. Why do you want to sniff off? These things happen. I'll tell you this thing happened in Jawar time. It's not new. If some of you guys will heard of Alpha Robinson. I know now he's mellow. You will not know if you are not around. People like Alpha Robinson stood in front of Jawara as a head boy, I believe, and give a speech at school and addressed. Jawara did not ask him to be arrested, but he was arrested by the CID. That CID turned up to be the NIA. The Daba Mariners and Bar and others. They arrested him. They arrested Mai Fati because Mai Fati was seen as a protege of Alpha Robinson and other young people being inspired. Writing poems or writing essays or writing speech or this thing. And they were taken to the police. They were maltreated. They were tortured. They were put in cells. Students. Those CID or this thing end up leading, becoming the head of the NIA. And where did they end up? They killed. They tortured and killed. That's what happens if you allow these things to go on in a country. But they never could have killed the spirit in Alpha Robinsons and others. No. But what they did is they discouraged the others, could have been inspired. And that inspirations and what would have that stop is bring consciousness and bring meaningful change through democratic process. Then we will not have Yahya Jammeh. Then we will not have Yahya Jammeh. If we continue to stifle this descendant voices, we are creating, fermenting something like a volcano, and it will erupt. It's inevitable. If you keep on doing wrong, and doing wrong to your people, the day will come. That's why in a democracy we allow these diverse views and everything to educate each other, to be conscious, to be organized and everything, to bring about change meaningful. This is the problem. That's why these youths came out in Kenya, and unfortunately they are killed. That's why we don't advocate that for all the time. Because what happens is, there's no other way they would have grab the attention of the state. Because if they write something on the media alone, they will be picked up individually. If they go out in small groups to talk about this thing, they will be castigated. And not only that, if they are, most of them are from poor background, they will not have scholarships, they will not, you know, all the systems they put in place to put them down. But it's a matter of time. That's why people say, oh, Gambia, Gambia. No, remember, Gambia have gone through. Kenya have gone through. They're bound to act in a different way. Gambians are bound to act in a different way. Remember, to the environment, the consciousness, the internet penetration, the access to technology, the access to the material, the access to, obviously, the Kenyan youth will be more aware, more social conscious. That's why the tribal politics did not get to them. They went out, they didn't go out with any political party, they didn't wait for any political party, they went out there. But the Gambian youths today, some of these youth leaders are captured by what I've just talked about here. Well, the mechanisms of tribalism that the dictator entrenched and it continued under this regime is holding a lot of youths to think of the national interest, seeing things as partitions, or if I go against Barrow, I'll be supporting UDP. If I support UDP, I am against Barrow. Rather than, this is my duty, this is my responsibility, this is to bring about the best of we are not enemies, but we might be called rivals or whatever it is, but we are partners, in fact, in national development. That's how it should be said. But that's not been allowed to filter in. That's why it's abhorrent to see these young people, and we didn't see the outrage in the so-called, the intellectual class. They are silent. The likes of Mahdi Jobata and others are writing out there. And we know why, and we have seen the evidence. That's why Mahdi is on police bail. And most of us are free because we don't want to be on police bail. Or we are part of, in fact, some of this silence is nothing. They are part of the wagon because they are thinking of the consultancy, they are thinking of jobs, they thinking of the high tickets, they're thinking of the other things they get from government, contracts and other things they get from government. And some of them think that, oh, it's not affecting me. Because their kids are not even going to those schools. Or some cost of living, in fact, they can ignore it because they can afford it. But I can tell you one thing. If you are in that boat, the boat called Gambia, and you think that because you are a good swimmer, you can even be an Olympic swimmer or anything, and you are in high seas, and you start chopping up the boat, thinking that whatever happens, I am a good swimmer, I can swim. I can tell you one thing. You would, as good as a swimmer you are, you cannot determine where the tides are going to be. When you fall in that water, you don't know, you cannot determine the tides. Nature or God or whoever you believe in control the waters will control the tides. You cannot control the other species inside that water. And others don't think that you will survive. And if you even survive after all the struggle and see yourself on the other side of or on the source, think about it. Where are the other people? And who are those other people? In Gambia, every other person is your relative. Every other person is part of what contributes in order to build the stability and progress of that nation. And if you think that if you lose a sizable number of that, you could be okay because of you are wealthy. You think that when most of these people survive with their trauma and everything, they come back to society, you are okay, you are safe. Their trauma, their experience and everything is not going to affect you, affect your family. You think that boat can easily be reconstructed, put all together? Why can't we not avoid that boat to Paris? Why can't we not? Why can't we not be all part of, with our different views or everything, be part of what will bring that boat to shore, safe, with ties of whatever it is. We all walk towards that. Why can't you be part of that? But you think you can sit on the boat? No, I'm not the one chopping. I'm not the one digging the holes. These are the people digging the holes. But you are not there to stop them. This is the scenario we have in the Gambia. That's why the taking advantage on these youths, we call them the Gen Zs, or some of these things are even not Gen Zs yet, and thinking that it's this youth, or we are not affected. The Barrow government is completely scared. Completely scared, because he have come to the time. You see, that's why I said, when these people commit their crimes, they don't think of the exit strategy. Because if you daily think of your exit strategy, I can tell you, you will not commit these crimes. Because you know that they will become a day of reckoning. You see, that's why there are debates in many corners, even with Ghanaians. I speak to a lot of Ghanaian colleagues. This debate that Ghanaians might not even want to express this, but some of them thought, the reason, you ask many Ghanaians why Rollins was not held to account. And some people tell you they thought Rollins was doing for the greater good. Even though he committed these crimes, they thought the crime he committed was for the greater good. Why? Ask them, why you think Rollins, he have killed judges, he have killed politicians. He have maltreated, killed some soldiers or whatever it is. They tell you it was not for his personal benefit. I am telling you what Ghanaians will tell you. Many Ghanaians I spoke to. It's not to their personal, it wasn't to Rollins' personal benefit. It was for the social good, for the national good. That's why Rollins died poor. Rollins' family are living a normal life. It's not like Barrow that come to government in 3 years building mansions. He lived in a bungalow. His wife was an intellectual, contributing. The wife never had a foundation that was siphoning money. No. And Ghana was so much divided between the North and the Southerners, between the Ashanti and the Kam, other tribes, especially people from the North, the Muslim part. And he brought these people, or brought balance, inclusivity, to the extent of making it possible for two democratic means, Northerners to be presidents many times. To the extent of the Southerners seeing the need to be inclusive in their political party, not believing the Ashanti mightiness or whatever ownership of land or other thing, that they always have to include a Northerner strategically as a vice president, in order to carry support from the North. When Ghana was economically disseminated, the corruption and in poor management, that people were starving and everything else, and he handed over to them for democracy. He leave office without being forced, hand over for democracy. To be installed in Ghana. They'll tell you this. Would a Gambian say that about Barrow? This is where Barrow, this is because he never thought about an exit strategy. An exit strategy would have been good governance. The only guarantee for our exit, this is good governance. You know, I will say this again. Example again. The reason Jawara had a problem of leaving power, it was not Jawara was scared to be prosecuted. Not for human rights abuses, violations, not for corruption. If I'm not saying that human rights abuse did not happen under his purview. I'm not saying corruption did not happen under his purview. But I can tell you it was not to the magnitude that a government will come into place, especially a government that who could have determined, because if Jawara had backed anybody at that time would have been the next president. He would not be scared of that person prosecuting him. because of not only his conduct within domestically, but in fact his reputation internationally would be unpopular for any government or strategy for any government to go after him, even if the government comes from the opposition. I can tell you that. That's why this notion of Jawara Faba, Ninekasi Bolam Yobon, that's where it was deprived from. Because the competition was within PPP itself and each other turned each other off. And now those people are scared of the next person coming in after Jawara, because that person they cannot determine their safety or whatever you call it, or to hold on to their positions of whatever they are in. That's why they never like Hassan Musa Kamara, they never like Sirif Mustafa Diba, they never like Bibi Dabo. They will fight among themselves. The person they like was the most corrupt person. Technically was Sehu Sabali. You see? And this is the same thing that what is happening to Barrow now is what happened to Nakalatura, Macky Sall, because it's the same trajectory. Macky Sall came at the back of people's struggle to be installed. Barrow came at the back of people's struggle. He never fought for anything. Guess what? What they did. That's why he's scared, because he's going to end up where Macky is. That's why when I see people saying, "Oh, he might likely to, return with the UDP," I said, don't rule it out. I'm not saying it's in process. Don't rule it out, because Barrow does not, and this is evidence, does not hate the UDP. What Barrow hates is what the UDP represent for him. If UDP would allow him anything he wants today, his safety and everything else, guaranteed that Barrow would go with the UDP. It would be easier for him. That's why the only time Barrow will go with the UDP if that would be assured to him, and knowing that there's no other way. If Barrow believes that there's another way, there's a person or movement he can trust that will win an election and that will secure him, I'll tell you Barrow will stay with that. And the evidence is here. Who are the people around Barrow today? Not the APRC. If Barrow can trust the APRC to be with him, because he knows he's already in power. But if you leave power, you have no power. The only power he could have got, the leverage would have been if he had left power as a good leader. But as the most corrupt, and the leader, because of this most corrupt and everything, trying to protect that crime, he is getting into committing another crime. And if he's not careful, the human rights abuses that are going to follow, and people resisting. Look, people resisted Yaya Jammeh. That's why the people that resisted Yaya Jammeh are the most affected. Be the UDP, be the journalists, be the religious leaders that went against him, they are most affected. This is how these things happen. That's why today, to sit down and see in a country where a child would be raped, and raped a child that was under care of a teacher. That child went through the pregnancy and nearly died. For a magistrate to have the audacity to rule that that person will charge $50,000 and or 2 years in prison, when the law have already make it very clear, the limit, the directives or this thing is about 10 years. Why do you think that magistrate had the audacity? Why do you think that magistrate does what they do? Tell you one thing, people without consent, and most of our elites have no consent, they have no empathy, they have no conviction. That's why they behave the way they behave. If any person, a human being, have empathy, have conscience, will have the conviction and to make sure that these wrong social ills would not happen in front of them, especially when they choose to be in politics or in a position of leadership. If you see these people behave this way, that's who they are. We are not going to blame that on the people. We are going to blame on that who they are and the government that is supporting them to be what they are. You think if he knew the consequences of ruling, if you think, if the magistrate knows that if I rule this wrongly, these are the consequences, because it's not only wrong, it's not a misjudgment or anything, it's deliberate, it's very clear, but he would do it because it's the norm. He would do it. Because if a president can pardon pedophiles, if the Justice Department can keep on processing pardons to go through the president to pardon pedophiles, then magistrates will see it fit to do what they want. Because of that magistrate, I can tell you, I don't have evidence, but it makes more sense to say that he have done that judgment because of the perpetration of the crime. That criminal, that monster is someone related to him, someone who have relatives that have influence, or someone who have paid for the decision to be given. That magistrate knows the law, understands this law, and that's why he sits there. But he takes that knowing that there's no consequences, and because of the government that is in place. Pedophiles have it. If you see the police services, the protection services, the child protection services being incompetent, inadequate. We see the process they took, the malignant investigation in that British pedophile. Making arrangements for that pedophile to compensate the poor family, and undermining the process for justice to be given out. Is that not a system? The president, the justice ministry, the police, the magistrates, and that means the judiciary, and that is the failure again of the Chief Justice. Hassan Bijalo. What reform have we seen? Go and look at the Mile 2 prisons. Mile 2 prisons, the young Gambians in there that been paid for several offenses. Alleged on them because if you are in remand, it's alleged. You are not convicted of a crime, and these people are serving a year, 2, 3 years. And some more, and they've not been tried. Where is the justice reform Hassan Jallow should have made sure we have? Where's the criminal justice reform that would have ensured that a magistrate would dare not do the way things they do if he's not supporting of it? How many Gambian youths that have committed crimes or alleged have committed crimes, and their lives has been just sitting in Mile 2? In remand, they might not have been guilty of that crime, but after 3-4 years, if a court come out to determine these people have not committed the crime or guilty of that crime, they don't get compensated. We cannot fix back the damage done to these young people, women, children, because they were, whatever it is, they were in the environment that they found some marijuana and others. But we have known and seen the trial of drug, the cocaine dealers, big mafia dealers, the process of it, the bails and everything they have, to the audacity of them asking for permission to travel outside the country. The audacity. Because who is their lawyer? The president's lawyer, Sirif Tambedu. Is this not a system? Some of those youths, even if they had committed those crimes, their place is not to be left in Mile 2 in remand for that long. The place is to be processed in a juvenile tribunal. The process is to be sent to a juvenile institution where they evaluate it and help to be rehabilitated. There might be many reasons why these young people committed this crime. That's why they should be treated differently. They are not career criminals yet. And if we continue taking them to Mile 2, leaving them in remand with all these career criminals, what do we expect? They become those career criminals because they learn that's the institution we take them from. But imagine, go and look at the president's pardon. Whenever he pardons, he doesn't pardon the youths. He pardons people who have political connections, regardless of their crime. Murderers. He has pardoned murderers from Basse. 2. They went and murder a family member, robbery, and murdered that person. I wrote about that case before. He pardoned them. They have not even completed the due process of the judicial process, because their name were mentioned at the appeal courts for the prison officers to come say they are not in our custody, they were pardoned by the president. That's how much he doesn't care. That's why we need to engage the youths, and all these things happening. It's a system. You go to the business community that the president is supporting, just as in Kenya, talking about or trying to protect. This is a lie. He's protecting his own shares in Oil. You think Gambians are stupid? Oil standing in front of a ship, carrying cement, and you telling us, oh, Oil is local producer. It's standing at the port of Banjul with a ship full of cement, tank of cement, and this guy is classified as a producer. What is he producing? All that cement coming is produced by him in the Gambia, and protecting that person to have $50 million of grant, of loan that could have been other Gambians to have benefit from the same loan for agriculture. Again, this is how they structure it. Guys, thank you very much. It's gone for a long time, but this is what I don't even have time to summarize this. But we have to remember that what we have witnessed in Kenya, or witnessing in Kenya, is tragic. And the youths are not to be blamed. The youths are reacting the way that generation will react. That's why it's important to note their generation as the Gen Z. You listen to the media and everything, they are addressed as the Gen Z. It's not addressed that the opposition came out. We can learn a lot from this. The opposition did not come out. There will come a time it's not the opposition that will lead. And let us not think that the opposition is our solution. What I mean is totality. The opposition is not only, opposition is part of the solutions. They are part of the process, but the opposition alone cannot do it. Because the systems we have in place is a two-party system. Regardless of how the political party has been registered, until it's proven that we have a third party that is likely to win an election, the facts are in Africa and in the Europe, Western Hemisphere, it's a two-party state. What do we have? We have catalysts of other parties becoming to make elections winnable by the mainstream. The only time is I've proven evidence, I can tell you, go and look at the history of politics everywhere in the Western Hemisphere, in Africa, is passive. Anti-establishment, from the grassroots up, and go in and win an elections and determine a government. If you really want that change, an ideological change, that's what it takes. But in the process of coming to that, passive did not just happen in a vacuum. They went through a process. And there was Yanamar before passive. There were, other movements before passive. Other movements before passive. But what does this tell you about Kenya? It's a reaction from the Gen Z generation. And as I said, because of, just as we see the Gen Zs behave in America, in Europe, against the Zionist movement, it's not new. We used to call them university students. We used to call them this, but there's a reason they call Gen Z, because of the source of their influence. It happened in the apartheid, fighting apartheid in South Africa, happened in fighting against Vietnam conscriptions, happened against many other things. As recent as we have seen the Me Too movement, we have seen the Occupy Wall Street, we have cost of living, we have seen it in anti-COVID these things, and these are realities of life, and we have it in the Gambia. What it needs is to be nurtured, and it's going to come out. It's coming out, for that matter. And as we said, the reason they came out, they don't want to be killed. They should not be killed. They didn't go out there to be killed. They went out there for performing, not about their rights, about their responsibilities. not only the right to demonstrate, their responsibility to demonstrate. They are not there to apply for permits or anything. That's how they came out. But again, what we learn from that is, end of the day, if these movements are not organized, what it does is catalyst for one government to move from one hand to another, from this to that, but will not bring them the change. What it achieves is a temporal measure that will stop the bills going through parliament and everything. Is very costly for over 13 lives. What we have to learn, we learn from what Pastif did. The X generation are the founding members of Pastif. What they did, they went and used the millennia, they used the Gen Z and built a birth-based movement. And that birth-based movement won the argument and carried Senegal with them, and they won. And they went through all that brutality and they prevailed as an anti-establishment. And today, they are acting and serving on the promises they made for a sovereign economy. And we have seen their move so far in 3 months. In any way, measures you do, they are delivered. And I can tell you, if Pasteur fail to deliver, you will see what's happened to them. That's why we advocate for democracy to this thing, because they will change themselves. And what we learn from here again, from Kenya, is it's not about the opposition. Because in most cases, the opposition cannot do these things. When the opposition lead to do this, they are already marginalized. And the reaction is completely different. That's why I pointed the case of Sri Lanka, where it was not the opposition, because the opposition is divided against the government. But it was the people, and those people belong to the opposition, but it was not led by the opposition, but the people reacted because of their suffering and so on. And again, Gambia, we come to it. We have seen these young, talented youths doing what they do. Satire, poetry, and anything they do. Especially themselves, they've been stiffen off because of the government is scared. And they know why they're scared. That's why it's for us, Gambians, regardless of your association, your party, or whatever you are, can we put the national interest forward? You see, there's a lot of things I wanted to touch on, but we'll do that another time. You see the audit reports coming, talking about the last Hajj, where the Minister of Interior, then the former Minister of Interior, the former guy from APRC, Abasanya, and the Permanent Secretary, and President Barrow, how they took the money that was meant for Hujjaj to support other people to go to Hajj. We are reading that scandal from government audits. Government audits. I can tell you it's happening this time now. Same thing is happening this time now. Go and see the list of NPP. And if any of those NPP members tell you that they're going to make it on their own, they're lying. One way or the other, if they were not close to Barrow, they would not have gone for Hajj. Most likely going to Hajj this year. We all know each other in this. Whether you are from the diaspora, whether you are in the Gambia, we all know each other. The bulk of the people they took to Mecca, the chief of Momar Cham, the chief of defense, took a ticket and with the wife. Those tickets are meant for the poor. Even when they steal money, because Momar Cham have stole so much money in this OIC contracts and other contracts, OIC contracts for what the soldiers did. We know about that, but still he has to take a ticket for this meant for the troops. To Mecca with his wife. The political advisors, the party members, most of them, almost all of them, they will lie to you. Let them produce the evidence. And even if they produce the evidence that they paid for themselves, go and check their backgrounds, if they were not close to Barrow or been in the NPP, they will not have afford to go to Mecca. Their businesses and everything else, investment is based on Barrow. Before Barrow, they were nobody. To able to go to Mecca now, to spend minimum of $500,000, minimum. just for the tickets. They will not do it. But you see, the same thing happened in Kenya. The Kenyan president is a multi-millionaire through working with government. The ex-president is a multi-billionaire because of his family ties. The opposition are multi-millionaires. Do you know what happened? Go and check the retirement package for the ex-president. Go and check the parliament, how much they get paid. Even more than most Western democracies. That's why they passed the bill that they wanted to pass. Go and look at Gambian parliament. Today, 90-something% of our parliamentarians, if they were not in parliament, they would not have achieved what they achieved. And they have no knowledge, no experience, no banger. 90-something%, I'm telling you. If they were not in parliament, they would not have been driven cars, having land and all these payments and allowance. They barely get the minimum wage. Most of the parliamentarians today, if they were not parliamentarians, they will struggle to earn $10,000 a month. They will never think of driving a brand new car. They will never think of having a plot of land. Go and check that. But today they will serve any law, any financial budget, they will pass it, and they will never protest against it, because they are taking care of us, just as the justice is doing for themselves, so that they can have their package, retirement package and everything. Then who are they representing? Themselves, not the people. Then that's why the people would have to come out and show their outreach. That's the only way. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a long one. Thank you.